I'm going to need people to stop sleeping on Washington. You know, I was really surprised when Washington was a 2.5-point favorite coming into this game against Oregon State. And a lot of people that I talked to were telling me that, oh yeah, Oregon State upsetting Washington, lock of the week. And I get that Washington, the way they beat Oregon and the way Oregon has played since then makes you believe that Oregon is a better team than Washington. But at the same time, we still have to give Washington credit for that win. And we still have to give this team credit for remaining undefeated. Look, at this time of the season, style points don't really matter all that much. All that really matters is finding ways to remain undefeated. And that's what Washington has found ways to do. And I never felt like Oregon State had a shot at winning this game simply for the fact that I never thought that they would be able to get enough out of their passing attack to be able to pull off this upset. You see, Damian Martinez was pretty much the majority of Oregon State's offense in this game. And you're not going to be able to beat a team like Washington that has one of the top quarterbacks in college football in Michael Penix with DJ Uiagalelei giving you subpar play at quarterback. This dude is so overrated. He's not trash, but he's not good neither. He was overthrowing wide open wide receivers. Yeah, he made a couple of throws, 12, 15 yards downfield with pressure in his face, and he had some really big time runs. Hell, he was better running the ball in this game than he was throwing the football. Now, albeit, Michael Penix, he didn't start the game out hot. He started out pretty slow, which has kind of been a theme for Washington's offense. In a couple of games that I've watched them play this season, they've had the tendency to get out to some slow starts. But Washington, once they went up 22-10 at halftime, I kind of felt like the game was over. But Oregon State, to their credit, they played really well in the second half. Their defense shut down Washington's offense until the closing minutes of the fourth quarter when Washington really needed a play or two on offense to seal this game. Oregon State, like I said earlier, Damian Martinez was the majority of their offense. You look at their receivers, they're really small, and they really struggle to push the ball downfield in the vertical passing game. The majority of Oregon State's offense comes from short plays with receivers making yards after the catch or them getting a couple of good throws in the middle area of the field in the intermediate short passing game. But outside of that, this offense, when it comes to their passing attack, is not really that great. They don't really have talented receivers, and they don't really have great quarterback play. Hell, I felt like Aiden Childs should have stayed in this game for a lot longer. I would have loved to see what he could have done in this game, but this was a really impressive win from Washington, and it was a statement win because at this point, next week they play Washington State in the Apple Cup. There's no reason why they should have won that game and go into the Pac-12 championship game undefeated, which is something that many people didn't envision Washington being able to do even when they were able to beat Oregon. And always was, man, when are they going to end up losing because they're not going to be undefeated? I like how people thought the Pac-12 title game was going to be a matchup between two one-loss teams and winner gets into the college football playoffs. Now, that still can happen. But at the end of the day, Washington is the most complete team in the Pac-12 right now. Their defense showed you in this game that they actually has what it takes to stop a serviceable offense. Albeit DJ Uiagalelei, he's not really that good, but I don't think too many people would have expected for Washington's defense to pretty much have their best performance of the whole entire season. We haven't seen Washington's defense play this way since the start of this year. They were able to get some big turnovers when it mattered the most. Of course, they couldn't stop the run game. That's Oregon State's memo. That's what they like to do. They like to impose their will on you up front, but it's not like Oregon State was running the football at will and Washington couldn't do anything to stop it. This was one of Washington's best defensive performances in this game. They showed that they can be a complete team. They don't just have to win games with their offense. Now, when they go up against Oregon, eventually in a couple of weeks, we're just going to see just how good this defense can be against one of the top offenses in the nation in a rematch against Bo Nix. But even against USC, their defense was able to come away with a couple of big stops. You don't need a great defense to be able to win it all. You need a top 50 or better defense to have a shot at winning a title, and that's what Washington has. They got a solid group of pass rushers. Their secondary is not all that great, but up front, I think Washington is good enough to handle themselves with amongst the best teams in college football. Meanwhile, you look at Oregon State, they still have a ways to go until they're ready to be a true playoff contender. There's a reason why they had that dark horse playoff label coming into this season. Their receivers aren't bad, but one of their wide receivers, I was watching it with a homegirl of mine, and she was like, damn, like, why do they have small receivers? And the reason being is that Oregon State isn't a team that recruits at a high level consistently every single year. With the way their offense is structured, you don't really need great receivers. You just need receivers that are good enough to make things happen after the catch, and they're primarily a run-first team. And you know, late in this game when they needed big plays downfield out of their passing game, they weren't able to get that. The receivers weren't able to get a lot of separation downfield, and DJ Uiagalelei wasn't able to hit guys when they were open downfield. I'm really shocked that the majority of people that bet on these games picked Oregon State to win this game outright. I never felt like Oregon State had a shot at beating Washington, even when this game got close. Because eventually, despite how well you can run the football, today's style of football is a passing league. That's just not true for the NFL. It's also true for college football. In late game situations, you have to be able to get some efficient play out of your passing game, and Oregon State wasn't able to get that. Now, that last throw by DJ Uiagalelei wasn't really his fault because the tight end stopped running, but that just shows you that that wasn't Oregon State's strength. Oregon State's strength is running the football, being a physical team at the point of attack, which they were to a degree in this game, but you need more than just a good run game to beat a team like Washington. You need good quarterback play. The only team that really was a threat to beat Washington this year was Oregon, because they had Bo Nix. And the reason why Washington won that game was because their defense was able to get big stops in fourth down situations. People make it seem like Oregon lost that game because of not Mario Cristobal, but Dan Lanning's aggressive decision-making in those fourth down spots. But you got to give Washington credit for being able to come away with stops in those situations. Because Oregon could have easily came away with those fourth down conversions, and if they would have hit on those, that would have been a completely different game that Washington probably would have lost. But I'm not super convinced that Washington just would lose to Oregon in a rematch. People are kind of overrating Oregon and underrating Washington. For some reason, people are putting Oregon over Washington in terms of who's a better team, and Washington beat these boys head to head. And I'm not super convinced that Washington is going to suffer their first loss to Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. I think that a lot of people need to stop disrespecting this team and look at this team for what they are. They're undefeated. Not too many other undefeated teams left in college football, and the Pac-12 has been a gauntlet of a conference. Hell, most of us probably thought that Washington would have lost because the Pac-12 has been so damn good and so damn deep this year that you thought this conference would have cannibalized on itself, similar to the Big 12 last season. But Washington demonstrated how they are an elite team in college football this year. You want to know how Washington is an elite team? Because elite teams are able to win games on the road. You see, normally, when you have a team like Washington that has the talent advantage and they're going on the road against a team that's not so talented, you feel like there's a good chance for an upset to happen because the majority of upsets in college football over the last couple of years have taken place when you had a team that was a road favorite that had a talent advantage going on the road against a team that they may not have been as talented, but they were a pretty solid team. And plus, when you throw in the home field advantage, that kind of tilts the momentum in the home team's favor. But the difference between Washington is that they weren't a favorite coming into this game. They were an underdog, which was really disrespectful by Vegas. Because Washington has demonstrated prior to this game that they are an elite team. Yeah, they barely beat Arizona State, one of the worst teams in Power 5, but when you're a good team, you find ways to win close games no matter who they're against and where they are. And you also have the ability to just find ways to win. Not always leaning on one side of the football to carry you all the time. Washington's defense was the MVP of this game. Everybody on that Washington defense deserves player of the game recognition, because when this offense went cold in the second half, the defense stepped up and they handled business. And you probably wouldn't have even envisioned Washington being able to win a game like this with this style of play against one of the more physical teams in this conference. Washington remains undefeated on the season. They're 11-0 going into the Apple Cup against Washington State, which they most likely should win, and they should be 12-0 in their rematch against Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. Let me know your thoughts on this game down in the comment section down below. Were you overlooking Washington in this game? Did you think this game was going to be an upset? I want to hear your comments in the comment section below.